The question, who's got it better than us?
Nobody! You know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. Tomorrow is the day, Trent, that we've all been waiting for. The return of Michigan football. We're all going to be in the big house. Primetime matchup, Michigan, Fresno State. Dude, I can't believe it's here. Football season is here. And we get to watch, obviously, the B team plays tonight, Michigan State against FAU. So we're going to get a little bit of insight into what the other team in the state looks like. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, man, football season is officially here. We talked about this before we went live. Does it feel weird to you that we're going to be in the big house tomorrow covering an actual football game, given that we've spent so many months just talking and speculating and all this other shit?
To me, the night before always feels like a second Christmas Eve type of a situation. Like it's fun to think about Michigan football being back in the big house covering the Wolverines. It's all fantastic, Chris, other than it's a primetime game, which absolutely I'm just not on board with it. Like every game should be at noon, every single one of them.
That's because you're lame, Trent. You're old. You like to be in bed early. Ricky from the Facebook page, this is the type of stuff that just fills our heart with joy. Ricky says from the Facebook page, he says, I want to take a moment to thank you, Chris and Trent, for making the next hour of my workplace more bearable. Appreciate all you guys do. I mean, that's what it's all about, man. We're just trying to bring joy to as many people as we possibly can. We are happy to help, Ricky. I'm excited for this show because with all the shows that we've done, like this is the first time, Trent, that you and I are really going to sit down and talk actual football in a game and what the season's going to look like, what our season predictions are going to be, what their overall record's going to be, what are some of the over-unders on Saturday, what can we expect? And so very, very excited to be able to do that. But Trent, before we get into those things, I am curious. I talked about the B team playing tonight. You got Michigan. Well, you got Michigan State, right? Okay. They're taking the field tonight. Michigan State versus FSU. I'm curious. Michigan doesn't take the field until 7:30 Saturday night. What are some of these games that you're going to be keeping an eye on, whether it's tomorrow night or early tomorrow before we get there? Are there any games that are really getting you excited, or you feel like we got to keep an eye on that one?
Well, I mean, just the college football fan inside of me, I'm kind of excited for that Clemson and Georgia. I think that game's right away at noon. Clemson, they haven't been the Clemson team that we've been used to seeing the last few years. So it's going to be interesting to see what they're like going against a powerhouse in Georgia. Also, my guy, Pat McAfee, his team, West Virginia, they're at home against Penn State. That place is going to be rocking.
Nice little $1 million donation to the West Virginia NIL group out there. I mean, that's your boy. That's your guy.
So Penn State, are they going to be able to turn the table? What's their offense going to look like this year with Drew Aller coming back at quarterback? Yeah. And then also, I think, While people don't want to fully admit it, I think a lot of Michigan fans are going to be kind of intrigued to see what that $20 million roster looks like down in Columbus. They play at 3:30, and it's going to be interesting to see what they look like.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they're going to look pretty good against Akron. But yeah, I mean, those are, that's one of my favorite aspects of college football is hate watching teams. Like last night, I was glued to my television just waiting for Colorado to go down to North Dakota State, right? It was so close. And I don't know if you saw this, and people are like, well, Deion Sanders likes to take this sort of like aggressive approach. People want to see us fail. People are always against us. Yeah. Did you happen to see the official Twitter account for Colorado, what they tweeted after they beat North Dakota State? It was something about, I think North Dakota State was trying to explain what the difference between a buffalo and a bison was. And Colorado retweeted it with, here's the difference. And it said Colorado 1-0, North Dakota State 0-1. And I'm like, look, man, you barely squeaked by, and I think they were 5 yards short there on that final play of getting it in the end zone. Like,
Yeah.
this is a team that's full of transfers. You're talking about Shedeur Sanders as if he's like going to be the number 1 overall pick and he's going to choose where he wants to go. And you're struggling against North Dakota State. Now, granted, give the Bison their flowers, man. Like, that's a solid team. They've been a solid program for a long time, but they had to go into Colorado's building and they took them all the way to the wire. And so I'm just, if Michigan comes out, let's say same thing happens with Michigan, down to the wire with Fresno State. And then the Wolverines are like puffing out their chest after. Like, are you going to feel good about that?
I wouldn't be doing that if I were Michigan or Colorado. I mean, the thing is, North Dakota State, they're one of the best teams down in that. What are they in? Are they FCS?
I think they're FCS. Yeah.
So yeah, they're one of the top teams in the FCS, and that's definitely no easy game to schedule, especially for a Colorado team that struggled mightily last year, especially defensively. So yeah, that's a bad look in my opinion.
Yeah, and Tyler, I agree. I mean, Colorado's overrated. Offensively, I think they're electric. I think they can clearly put points on the board. They've got some stellar athletes down there, but defensively, it's a bit of an issue. And then I think just like overall mentality, you know what I mean? Cohesiveness, like the mental toughness you have as a team. Colorado's got a lot of growth and a lot of maturity to go through, and I'm not sure, I don't mean this as an offense to Deion Sanders, but it's going to come off that way anyway. It doesn't matter to me, but like, I don't know that they're ever going to reach a certain level of maturity with a guy like Deion Sanders running it. It is prime time. It is like show and flash, and Shedeur Sanders with like the $ symbol, stitched into his towel on his uniform. Like, that's what it is. It's flash. It's gold chains. It's celebrities on the sidelines. Like, that's what Colorado is all about. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't be puffing my chest out over what, a 4-point win.
You better watch how you talk about Deion. You're not going to be allowed to ask him. Yeah, you can't ask him questions anymore.
I won't be allowed to cover Colorado. That would be a shame. But yeah, you touched on it. Another game, number 8 Penn State going on the road to West Virginia at noon. Tough environment to play in. I was talking to one of my buddies about this before we went on the show. Like, he was like, yeah, it's a tough crowd out there if you know anything about West Virginia fans. I'm like, yeah, I know everything about West Virginia fans. I'm like, it's inbreeding out there. There's a lot of missing teeth, and they live West Virginia Mountaineer football. And so that is a tough environment to go into. And to your point, Trent, Penn State is one of those teams that a lot of analysts are viewing as like the 3rd best team in the conference, right? A 10-2 team. They've got a relatively easy schedule. They got to play the Buckeyes, but they don't have to play Michigan. Do they have Oregon on the regular season schedule? I think they avoid the Ducks as well.
Yeah, I don't think they do. They play Ohio State, and I believe that's the only top team.
And they've got Washington at home. Right. I think that's another. So overall, I'm pretty sure Penn State's got to go on the road and play USC. So there are some potentially difficult games there for Penn State. But by and large, I think a lot of people are looking at this and saying 10-2, Penn State's a potential playoff team. So that's going to be one to keep your eye on, because if it is Michigan, Penn State for that 3 spot, right, you want to keep your eye on the Nittany Lions and see what they're doing throughout the year. And then the other one, of course, it's not Saturday, it's Sunday, number 23 USC versus number 13 LSU, playing out in the desert in Vegas. I'm really excited about that one as well. We've talked about USC before on this show. I think a lot of people are looking at Michigan's schedule and they're just writing USC in. That's a win for Michigan, right? And I don't necessarily think it's going to be that easy. Granted, they play in the big house. The game's in Ann Arbor, tough environment, tough place to win. And I think USC has its issues, but we're going to get a look at what SEC is capable of in a relatively difficult environment against a top 15 opponent on Sunday. And so I think that's definitely going to be one that I'm going to keep my eyes on. Trent, this is a question that I've been wanting to ask you for I think 3 or 4 shows now, and we just haven't gotten to it. And I even told you, I'm like, there's a question I want to ask you, but I just want to wait till we get on the show. And then I always forget to get to it. So I'm going to get to it now, because I think if I don't do it now, we're never going to be able to do it. And if you're in the comments out there, you're watching the show, feel free to throw it in the comments, because I think maybe we would think the answer is simple, but I'm not so sure it is. Trent, if you could only attend one Michigan football game this year, you can only go to one, you can only see one in person, which game is that for you?
So this is away or home?
Away or home, but you can only go to one. Every other game you got to watch from afar on TV. You can be at one of these games.
I'm going to go ahead and narrow it down to Texas and Oregon, primarily because I've never seen either of those two teams play in person. I'm going to go with Oregon. I think a lot of people would say Texas, but Oregon's really intriguing to me. Just coming into the Big Ten year one, they're loaded offensively under Dan Lanning. Probably that game. Granted, I mean, it's not like Texas is going to come to Ann Arbor very often either, playing in the SEC unless they meet in the playoff one of these years. But I'm going to go ahead and go with Oregon just for the intrigue, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm seeing Oregon, Texas. A lot of people, November 30th, Michigan versus Ohio State. Oregon says Tyler Andrel from the Facebook page. Ricky says he's picking Fresno State.
Interesting.
Something to be said about opening week, and the place is going to be rocking, and it's prime time. I mean, look, I'm not hating on that. The first ever matchup between Michigan and Fresno State at night under the lights in the big house. They got the new lighting system now in the stadium. Like, yeah, it's going to be electric for a little while until Michigan goes up by 30 and the students start filing out so they can go get drunk. But hey, that's what happens in these early games. Let's see. CJ from the Facebook page, he says Texas. We got Dave from the Facebook page saying Texas, but Ohio at the big house. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because I've seen Ohio State now in person a handful of times, and in some of these other conference games, I've seen it. I think I settle on Texas. That's where I go. It's the first time that these two programs are meeting in the big house. I believe it's their first regular season matchup. They've met one other time in the Rose Bowl, back in 2007, was it?
Yeah, six or seven.
First ever regular season matchup between Michigan and Texas, two programs that I view as blue blood programs. You get that in the big house. And it's a top 10 matchup between two teams that, Texas is certainly being viewed as a playoff team, a team that can make a run at the national championship. And Michigan is one of those, they're a big unknown. And I think that game is really where we're going to find out what Michigan is all about. So if I could only pick one game, I think the default for most people is you want to go to Michigan, Ohio State, whether it's in the big house or you got to go down in the horseshoe, the greatest rivalry in all of college sports. And really any sport at any level, I would argue. And certainly when I was at the horseshoe in 2022, incredible experience watching Donovan Edwards put up 200 plus on the Buckeyes. But, beating Ohio State, we're just used to that by now. It's not that interesting to me anymore. Give me Michigan, Texas, in Ann Arbor. That's what I'm trying to see if I could only pick one. So you're Oregon. That's where you're settling?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's definitely that added bonus as to you don't know when the next time you're going to see Texas play in Michigan again.
Yeah.
But also, for me, I think when the time Oregon comes around, both teams are going to be humming along. I think Michigan's going to be playing pretty good football. Oregon should be playing good football. Week 2, there's just so many unknowns too. Are we going to see a good football game? Is Michigan, are they going to shock people and play even better than what most people think that they're going to be playing when it's time for week 2? Or is Texas going to just be that much better? I don't know. But by Oregon, I think both teams will be humming along. They'll both be playing good football, and it should just be a really good game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Intrigue for Texas week 2. There's going to be so much riding on what the outcome of that game is, and so excited for that. For me, second at Washington. I've heard phenomenal things about that environment, about that stadium, beautiful area. One of the loudest stadiums in all of college football. I feel like that would be an incredible place to be. You get to go out and visit Seattle and talk about a place where, now that they're in the conference, you can expect Michigan, you have multiple opportunities to go out there, but I think there's something to be said for being at the first one ever. So for me, Texas number 1, but Washington is real close at that 2 spot, and being able to go to Husky Stadium for the first time as part of the conference, I think that would be incredible. Let's get to another topic here before we start to move into season predictions. And I'm going to be honest, man, I am not at all where I was when we were speaking months ago about how we thought this season was going to play out. And I battle this all the time, right? We're in the media and we have that fandom in us, but we also have to try to be as level-headed as we possibly can in our analysis and how we view things, because look, there's plenty of podcasts out there and outlets that are just all in, all Michigan, 12-0 regular season. Yes, this team is, winning a net. You can get that other places. We try to be fair and balanced here. And that's where I'm going to be coming at from my season predictions. But before we get into that, I've seen it in the comments here. There is rumor that even though nothing has been officially announced, is it possible that Davis Warren is the starting quarterback at the University of Michigan on Saturday? Trent, have you seen the rumor flying around? Have you seen sort of the Davis Warren push? And if that is the case, what does that tell you about the quarterback battle? What does that do for your confidence level heading into the season?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to put money on it right now, I'm saying that Davis Warren's trotting out on the field with the ones on Saturday night.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I think both quarterbacks are going to play a lot. I think it's going to be a true audition for that Texas game. Just because Davis Warren starts week 1, I don't think that means he's going to necessarily be the guy all year. Same with Orji. If he would go out there with the starters and I don't think that ultimately means that he's going to start all season either. I think they're both going to have to go out there, perform, and then whoever plays better, I think will get to start week 2. So just because of the rumors flying around and whatnot, it doesn't really change anything in my mind about the quarterback battle. All I've heard for the last month now is how tight the battle is. And I think we need to see it in game action on Saturday night.
Yeah, I agree with you. CJ from the Facebook page, he says, does the starting quarterback for tomorrow's game actually matter? To be honest, no, I don't think it does. I mean, we're all excited to see who's going to trot out there with the first team unit. But to be honest, if it was Alex Orji going out there to get the first rep, I don't even necessarily know that signifies that he's going to be the starting quarterback at the University of Michigan. I could see a very real scenario where, Alex Orji runs out there and he runs it twice, and then you bring in Davis Warren on third down or something like that, and it's Davis Warren for a majority of the first half. So, yeah, I don't know that starting quarterback matters as much for this week 1 game, but we talked about this before. I do think we're going to see a steady dose of both guys. And to your point, Trent, it is very much an audition. You have 2 guys who have been in the program now for a while, Alex Orji, a junior, Davis Warren, a senior. Not a lot of experience in the game, right? And then you've got that big week 2 matchup that everybody's going to be looking at with Texas. You got to figure out what you have at the quarterback position. There's only so much you can learn from fall camp and practicing against your own guys, right? You got to go and see it on Saturday under the lights in the big house. And I think both guys are going to get the opportunity to make their case. But I will say this. If it is Davis Warren, if he has established himself as that guy and he has won the job or does win the job, kudos to this kid, man. Like, this guy has battled through it, the battle with leukemia and all the things that he's had to overcome in his life. And I just think he's an incredible person. I think he's a guy that a lot of people look to on this team as a leader. And one of the things that I've seen that has been said that I 100% agree with is that JJ McCarthy sort of changed the mentality in that quarterback room. Whereas when it was a battle between McCarthy and McNamara, it wasn't necessarily the friendliest battle in the world. McNamara was coming at it from a standpoint of like, he felt slighted. He felt like something was being taken away from him. And I think when JJ McCarthy took over that job and McNamara went elsewhere, the mentality in that quarterback room got better to where they truly all are rooting for each other. And you've heard that from guys like Davis Warren and Alex Orji during the offseason, that regardless of who's out there, it's a summation of the entire room, right? Like, we are all rooting for each other's success. A lot of times that's just kind of fluff and nonsense. I truly believe it with this room. So again, if it is Davis Warren, I think I'm interested to see what it looks like, because we've seen flashes of it in spring games. We just haven't seen it materialize on Saturdays, and what a better opportunity to do that than against Fresno State in your own building.
Yeah, I think last year Davis Warren was 0 for 5 maybe, and with an interception. So, I mean, granted, he's looked really good back-to-back years in the spring game, like you said, but obviously what matters is on the field in game action. And either way, I think we're going to see something out of Davis Warren or Alex Orji, and I think it's going to tell us all we need to know going into that Texas game. But yeah, just to go back to your question, I don't think that just because Davis Warren starts Saturday, it's a done deal that he's a starting quarterback. I do definitely think both players are going to get enough reps to show the coaches and fans who's going into the Texas game as the starter.
Let me ask you this. If it is Davis Warren, do you think that some of the concerns that people have about Alex Orji that really came to fruition, that, you know, maybe it was reading the defense, maybe it was accuracy or consistency. I mean, do you think if it's Davis Warren that all of those concerns that people were saying about Alex Orji, that maybe some of that still lingered? Or do you just think that, I guess the way I'm going to ask this, do you think it's more that, or do you think it's more Davis Warren has really elevated his game to like another level that maybe we're not aware of? Which do you think is the biggest factor here?
I want to say that it's just because Davis Warren has become just this elite talent that we haven't seen. But I think it's probably a little bit of both, but I'm actually going to lean more towards Alex Orji just hasn't progressed the way coaches were hoping that he would. We all know the Duke can run. Like we've seen that. We know that he can read the defense in that situation. He can lower his shoulder and run. But he only threw one pass for a reason, I believe. And in the spring game, I didn't think he looked all that bad, but maybe he just hasn't hit that next step, that next level to be the starting quarterback at Michigan, where Davis Warren, he's more of that polished passer, and both Sherrone Moore and Kurt Campbell want that, at least early on.
Yeah, and Meredith from the Facebook page, this is a question I've seen brought up a couple of times. She says, are you surprised Michigan didn't pick up a graduate transfer quarterback in the portal to play for 1 year? I hope Orji or Warren are up to it, but I worry that they are still a work in progress. Trent, this is an interesting question because, you know, Kurt Campbell expressed a lot of confidence. He said, we believe we've got the guy in our room right now. But I do think that, you know, look, JJ McCarthy didn't make a decision right away, and there was a chance that he may have come back. And if he did come back, we all know that it was going to be his job. And then you also had the lingering question with Jim Harbaugh while all this was going on, and Michigan was playing late into the season. And so do you think that it's more of like Michigan kind of screwed themselves over maybe by not taking a harder look or trying to bring somebody in? Or do you think it's a matter of like, there were people that were making their decisions long before Michigan was ever ready to pull the trigger, and by the time they were in that position, most of those top tier guys were already gone and committed elsewhere?
Yeah, I think that's more of the issue. Michigan obviously played the very last game of the season. JJ didn't announce right away what he was doing, although he might have told Jim Harbaugh and Sherrone Moore what he was planning on doing. But either way, yeah, I think that's the main issue. Most of your talented guys, your Riley Leonards who went to Notre Dame, they already made their decision what they were doing. And if Michigan was going to bring somebody in, I don't think they wanted another Alex Orji or Davis Warren. I think it needed to be somebody that was very, very good and clearly was going to be the starter. There was already a big quarterback battle brewing, and you didn't want to add another guy into the mix. So I definitely think that was the issue there.
Yeah, I agree with you. CJ from the Facebook page, once again, he says, I'm going to tell myself it's Davis is really progressing well. And I mean, that's entirely possible. Brad from the Facebook page says, I'd rather have a polished passer that can open up the run game. I do think there's something to be said for that. Like Alex Orji, obviously we know what he can do with his legs, but we've heard that Davis Warren is a more polished passer. And based on what you have in the backfield and all the weapons that you have around him at wide receiver, like that might be the safest play. You know what I mean? If you're looking for Cade McNamara-ish 2.0, I think Davis Warren probably fits that closer than Alex Orji does. A guy who plays his role, doesn't need to be a superstar, but can protect the ball, get it to where it needs to be, and overall, like, just play your role well. To me, that's Davis Warren. If he can be something above and beyond that, then I think we're all going to be blessed for it. But if he can be that at a minimum, I think this Michigan offense has enough weapons to where it's going to be just fine. And then Douglas from the Facebook page reiterates, yeah, they couldn't do it because of JJ's late decision. That was certainly a big part of it, man. If you're a quarterback who's looking to transfer because you want to play, you want to be the guy, like, you know, you're looking at JJ McCarthy in Michigan and you're like, well, if he's there, I'm not going to play. And why transfer to Michigan if I'm going to have to sit a year? So that's pretty much where that stood. Blake Dame from the YouTube page says Michigan already picked up the grad transfer. It's Tuttle. Yeah, I mean, Tuttle was certainly a factor there, but he hasn't been healthy, man. He struggled with injury last year. He's obviously struggled, you know, to recover from an injury during the offseason. And so there's really no telling when Tuttle is going to be available. Let's start to transition off of the quarterback because you know what the beauty of this is, Trent? We can sit here and speculate all night long, but in 24 hours, we're going to figure out. We're going to find out who it is, and we're going to get to watch that guy in action. And then when we come back on Monday for our pre-record show, we're going to be able to talk about actual results. So I'm very excited about that. Let's just put the speculation to bed. I don't care who walks out there for the first rep. I don't care who finishes the game. Let's just see what these guys are capable of. Let's get into, dude.
This is a tough team right here.
Season predictions for the Michigan Wolverines. I'm a little bit nervous about this segment here because I don't know if
it's that bad or what.
It's not that it's bad. We'll just get in. I'm going to let you start us off with season predictions. So Trent, what I want to know from you, season prediction, I want what you think the overall regular season record is going to be. If you've got losses on that record, who are they to and why? Lead us off.
I'm gonna stand on the same hill I've been standing on for a couple months now. All the longtime listeners who listen to us weekly, 10-2. 10-2. I think they're going to lose to both Oregon and Ohio State. I have them beating Texas. I think it's going to be a epic game, and I look for Michigan to win in a close game. But I've got Oregon going undefeated. I have them winning the Big Ten. I think they're just so loaded offensively.
God, you love Dan Lanning. You love Dan Lanning.
I just think their offense is so good, and I think their defense is good too. And again, I don't think Michigan is going to go out and get killed by Oregon, but I think Oregon just has enough power that's going to knock Michigan off. And then Ohio State, Michigan's won the last 3 years. It wouldn't shock me at all if Michigan goes into the horseshoe and wins. Like, that would not shock me at all. In fact, I would pick Michigan to beat Ohio State before I would Oregon. But with that being said,
the road win against the Buckeyes over the home win against Oregon. Okay.
Yep. But as I've said before too, I think all the pressure is on Ryan Day. I think he knows he has to win that game. They went out and spent $20-some million on this roster to beat Michigan, to win the Big Ten, to win a national championship. And I also believe that he knows if he doesn't beat Michigan this year at home, there's a chance that he's no longer the coach at Ohio State. Like, this game against Michigan is probably the biggest game in Ryan Day's career. And I think that he's probably going to have this team ready to go. But again, even though I'm predicting Michigan to lose this game, it wouldn't shock me at all if they walk in there and beat them.
There's no question that Michigan game is the biggest game of his coaching career, hands down. Lydia Goldman from the Facebook page, by the way, who's been a follower and been a part of this platform for a very long time. Love to see your name on there, Lydia. She says so many unknowns standing here today to make predictions will be easier after we watch the first two games across the board. Of course, Lydia, it's going to be easier after we watch the games, but that's why you got to go out on that limb. You got to stand out on that ledge and say it with your chest after everything you've discussed and talked about and think you know about this team. How does the season play out? And then you got to live with, the consequence of what you say and whether or not you're going to be right. Trent's got them at 10-2. He's got losses to Ohio State and Oregon. Okay.
Go ahead and say they're going 12-0. Come on.
Here's the deal. And I said this before. I got to go back and forth between my head and my heart. And, I have led with my heart mostly over the last 3 years. Maybe it's because I'm a little more calloused heading into this. I don't know what it is going on with me, Trent. But my season prediction right now, the most realistic scenario that I see playing out in front of me is 9-3. I think we see 9-3 out of the Michigan Wolverines. But maybe I can get a little bit of goodwill with the people who are angry about 9-3 when I say this. I do think Michigan is going to lose a game that it shouldn't lose, whether or not it comes against USC or on the road against Washington, which I think is going to be a difficult environment. But I do think they're going to win one of the three that they're expected to lose, against Texas, against Oregon, or against Ohio State. If I were a betting man, I'd put my money on Ohio State, just based on what we've seen over the last 3 seasons and what we know about Ryan Day. But when you look at all of the turnover, when you look at, what are you going to have with Alex Orji? What are you going to have with Davis Warren? That is a critical position that I just think you are going to take a bit of a step back from JJ McCarthy. Michigan does not have JJ McCarthy on this roster, even though there's plenty of weapons on the offense, but you are breaking in a new starting offensive line. Like the thing that makes me go back and forth between 9-3 and 10-2 is the Michigan defense. I think this Michigan defense can certainly get Michigan to 10-2, and I wouldn't be that surprised to see it happen. But if somebody were to say, what's more realistic right now, 10-2 or 9-3, when I look at that brutal schedule, I say 9-3 right now is more realistic. So that's where I'm going to put it, 9-3 on the season. Does it mean Michigan's out of the playoff picture? Not necessarily, because you got to see what happens around the conference, what happens around, the college football as a whole. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a 9-3 regular season result. Trent, are you upset by that when you hear that? Does that make your blood boil?
I'm about to sign off. I'm about to hit this exit button and get out of here.
Screw this guy. 9-3. I mean, 12-0, right? Repeat Big Ten champions, and then off to the Natty once again. Let me ask you this. How realistic do you think 9-3 is? I know you've got 10-2, but is that a hope? Is that more of a hope, or is that more realistic? Like, where do you fall on 9-3?
No, I mean, I definitely think 10-2 is where I'm at using my head, but it wouldn't shock me. I mean, they play Texas, they play Oregon, they play Ohio State, they're at Washington, they get USC at home. Like, no, it wouldn't shock me if they drop one of those games.
What would surprise you more, 9-3 or 11-1?
11-1.
Yeah. That's where I'm at.
11-1.
That's where I'm at. So, yeah, look, man, that's a tough thing to have to do because, you want to lead with your heart. You love Michigan. You want to see them continue to do well. But when you look at the schedule, when you take into account all of the losses they've had on the roster, some of the things you're having to replace, I know they're loaded, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, but 9-3 is where I'm going to settle on that. So that's the record. Trent's got him at 10-2. I've got him at 9-3. Both, still squarely in the playoff picture. If they go 10-2 with this record or with this schedule, they are in the college football playoff. I think at 9-3, you're kind of.
I would argue if they go 9-3, and I know that a lot of this is going to depend on what the SEC does, ACC, so on and so forth. But if Michigan goes 9-3, but they beat Ohio State at the end of the season, right, I think you have a strong chance of making it into the playoff at 9-3. And
okay. So I want to address this because Tyrone from the Facebook page says 9-3 sounds like a Dookie sandwich. I've got Keegan from the YouTube page saying, I find your lack of faith disturbing. So here's the deal, though. You've got Trent at 10-2 predicting a loss against Ohio State. You've got me at 9-3 with one of those 9 wins coming against Ohio State at the end of the year. Let me ask you, the fans that are out there watching, which would you prefer? 10-2 with a loss to Ohio State in the regular season, or 9-3 and a 4th straight win over Ryan Day in Columbus? What to you sounds more appealing? I think that's how I come to terms with 9-3. If Michigan goes on the road and gets win number 9 against the Buckeyes in that season finale, I can live with that, man. I'm happy with that. And to your point, I think that a win against the Buckeyes, who are probably going to be, if not within the top, I mean, they're going to be one of the top teams in the country at that point. I think that win on your resume puts you in the playoff. And look, see, I've brought them all back. I'm getting 9-3 with the 4th straight win. Give me 9-3 and beat Ohio. You see, that's how you do it, Trent. That's how you make your case. Give me the 4, Pete, says Kevin.
Heck, Ricky says 1-11. As long as they beat Ohio State, he's happy.
Kyle from the Facebook page, 9-3 of beating Ohio State. So listen, all of you guys that were upset about the whole 9-3 and the lack of faith disturbing, when I ask you 9-3 and a win over Ohio State, we're all taking it every day. So I think it's going to be still a good and enjoyable season for the Michigan Wolverines. We'll see whether or not that's enough to get them into the college football playoff. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where we're at, Darren. That's where we're at with this football program. Any losses are unacceptable. I mean, we expect perfection in Ann Arbor. CJ Frazier says I sound like a crooked politician. Yeah, I don't know that that's necessarily.
CJ, tomorrow, Chris will write an article about how Michigan's going to go 12-0. Like, you just don't know what you're going to get out of this guy.
Well, it depends on what I see. I was at 11-1 for a while, and I've sort of come back down to earth. And I'm trying to, like I said, take a reasonable approach. Right? I want I don't want to fluff people up all the time. You can get that elsewhere if you need it. Okay, so that's the season schedule. That's how we see it playing out. Trent's at 10-2. I'm at 9-3, but I do got that win against the Buckeyes in there, so you got to give me some credit for that. Let's go to season over-unders. I've got 5. Trent, I believe you've got 5 season over-unders. I'm going to let you lead us off. We're going to go through 5 different over-unders. We're going to say, discuss where we fall on it, why we're there. And these are for the season as a whole. Trent, get us started.
All right, so we're going to talk about Michigan's bread and butter offensively and talk about the run game. Chris, over under 2,799.5 rushing yards for the whole season. Now, before you answer that, do you want some context of that?
Please give me some context.
Okay.
I'm about to run to my phone and start Googling things.
Last year, they rushed for 2,536 yards. But in 2021 and 2022, they were over 3,000 each year.
What was the over-under set at?
2799.5.
Give me the over. That's total rushing yards, right?
Total rushing yards, yep.
Yeah, give me the over because I just think, look, man, they're so deep at running back, and then you add a guy like Alex Orji into it, and I do think really that Michigan is going to be a team that focuses on running the ball. We saw it last year when Sharon Moore went into Happy Valley and was perfectly content running it 30 consecutive times. And I think when you have a Donovan Edwards, when you have a Khalil Mullings, when you have a Benjamin Hall, when you've got, a Jordan you've got a whole bunch of guys there in that backfield that I think can be very productive. It's really going to be dependent on what does Michigan have up front? What do they have at the offensive line? And although it's going to be all new names and all new faces, dude, that's a veteran offensive line. Unless it's Evan Link at the right tackle, the rest of these guys are either seniors or graduates or graduate transfers or whatever the case is. I mean, Miles Hinton, veteran. Josh Preeb, veteran, former captain at Northwestern. Gio Al-Hadi, senior. You know what I mean? Like, you've got veteran guys. Greg Crippen, assuming it's him, senior at center. But all of those guys are veteran guys. So I think Michigan's going to be fine up front. I think they're going to be able to run the ball just fine. Give me the over on, dude, you pretty much 2,800 yards. I'm taking the over on that. I think Michigan's going to do just fine. All right, Trent, we spent a lot of time talking about the quarterback position. I'm not going to give it specifically to a quarterback. I'm just going to ask you collectively, touchdown passes for Michigan on the year, total. I'm setting it at 16.5 touchdown passes for Michigan on the season. Are you taking the over or the under for whoever the quarterback is?
So this is a whole, like it could be 2 quarterbacks in there, or
sure,
it needs to be 1. Okay. I'm going to go with the over. That's roughly just a little over 1 a game. I think that's definitely possible. Whoever starts, they've got to throw the football. If Michigan doesn't throw the football at all, I don't think they're going to even get to your 9-3 prediction. So I think Davis Warren, Alex Orji, Jack Tuttle, if he surprises us, I think they've got to throw the football. They play a couple easy games in there. I mean, you got Arkansas State. You have a couple other games, Illinois, that you should be able to throw against where they could throw 2, maybe 3 touchdowns. So for 16 for the whole season, I'll take the over.
16.5.
16. Okay. Yeah. Over 16.5, 17. So 17 or more.
And for reference, during the 2021 season, Cade McNamara threw 15 touchdown passes compared to 6 interceptions. So that's where, we talked about Michigan just needs a Cade McNamara on the team. If you can get 15 touchdowns, 15 plus touchdowns, we saw what Michigan could do with that, right? You beat Ohio State, you win a Big Ten championship, you get to the college football playoff. Is it enough to get you to a national championship? I'm not so sure. But at 16.5, I'm also going to take the over just because I do think there's going to be a little more of an emphasis to sling the ball around. And you're right. There's some games in there where Michigan can put some touchdowns in the end zone through the air. But overall, once again, I think they're going to lean heavily on this rushing attack throughout the duration of the season. And so, I'm seeing like 18, I'm seeing 17. Some people are around 20. There's nobody that thinks we're about to see 30 touchdown passes, which when you look around the country, like that's pretty common to see, high 20s, low 30s, some people getting into the 40s, but at Michigan, it's like, 18. That's about where we're going to be at 17. And that's enough to win you a Big Ten championship and get you into the playoffs. So I'll take the over on 16.5, but yeah, I think it's probably going to be right around 17 touchdown passes. Trent, back to you.
All right. Switching over to the defense here. 1.5 Michigan defenders record 10 or more sacks. So you're looking at 2 or more double-digit sack leaders on the team.
Interesting. What was the over?
1.5.
1.5.
Yep.
Yeah, I do think we're going to get 2 guys in double digits, because when I look at what Michigan has, you've got experience at the edge with Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore, who I think is a guy who's like sort of that fringe under the radar edge rusher, but he's been in the program now for a while. You've got a guy like TJ Guy, who is, by all accounts, he's poised to have a pretty productive season as well. You've obviously got Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant in there, and we'll see what they can do. I mean, I think both of those guys, had like somewhere between 5 and 6 sacks last year, but Jay Sean Barham in the mix, Ernest Hausman there. You get a corner coming off. They're going to rack up sacks, and I think they've got enough guys on this roster who are going to get to the quarterback enough to where, yes, I will say you have 2 guys. I'll take the over, 2 guys in double digits when it comes to sacks.
Chris, did you know that this only happened one time at Michigan in the last 10 years, and that was 2021 when Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo did it?
Yeah.
With that being said, though, I'm right there with you. I'm also taking the over. I predicted in my big, bold predictions for Michigan season that Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore would both get 10 or more sacks. I think that they're both going to see more snaps this season. They saw plenty last year as backups. But then you have Mason Graham and you have Kenneth Grant that's going to penetrate the middle, disrupt the pocket, and I think that those edge defenders are going to eat all season long. So I'm right there with you. I'm going to take the over.
I love it. Let's go back to the offensive side of the ball, Trent. I don't care who it is. I'm not going to name the guy, but whoever the top receiver is on the Michigan roster, I'm setting the receptions at 48.5. 48.5 receptions for Michigan's leading receiver. And just to put a little bit of context in it, last year, Roman Wilson hauled in 48, Cornelius Johnson hauled in 47, and Colston Loveland nabbed 45. So whether or not it's Tyler Morris, Samaj Morgan, maybe it is Colston Loveland, maybe he takes a big step. I mean, dude, he had 45 receptions last year. Can he get another 4 this season? Where are you at on the over-under at 48.5 for Michigan's leading receiver?
Yeah, I'll also take the over there. I'm really high on Colston Loveland. I mean, granted, Michigan passing game might take a step back, but I think that he's going to be the alpha dog on the team. I think that he's going to win the Mackey Award, and I think Michigan's going to feed him as much as they possibly can. Even those just the short routes, I think that he'll be a safety blanket for Alex Orji or Davis Warren, and maybe his yard total won't be quite at 1,000. I think that he's going to have a big year, and I'm going to go over that 48.5.
Love it. We have Shem from the Facebook page saying, does Colston Loveland count? Absolutely, Colston Loveland counts. Kyle says Tyler Morris is going to have over 50 receptions. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened, but I also think Bobby makes a good point from the Facebook page. I don't think any one player gets to 48. I think they're going to spread the ball around. And when you look at this wide receiver core and Tyler Morris, Samaj Morgan, Frederick Moore, you brought back Amarion Walker, you got CJ Charleston. I mean, you've got guys who can be serviceable at the wide receiver position. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to get to 48, but I think it's Colston Loveland. I think that they are going to ride Colston Loveland as much as they possibly can. He had 45 receptions last year. I think he is going to play a much bigger role in the offense this year. So give me the over on 48.5, and I think it comes via Colston Loveland. Trent, back to you.
I couldn't think of exactly how to word this question, so I hope you understand where I'm coming from here.
This is a tough team right here.
All right, so 1.5 Michigan quarterbacks start 4 or more games.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go under. I think that like we've said, we're going to find out what Michigan has at quarterback pretty much through the first 2 weeks. And I'm not really going to sort of speculate on whether or not there's going to be some sort of injury, which could obviously change things here. But I think that based on what I heard from Kirk Campbell and what their overall goal is and how they want to handle the quarterback position, he was very clear. We want to get this thing right. Now, let me ask you this, though, Trent. Does it count? Let's say Saturday, we all think it's going to be Davis Warren. Like
he goes out there for the first snap and it comes out.
He goes out there. Like, does that count? Does that count?
That's the start. He would be the starter. So I was factoring that into this question when I was
okay. I'm still going to take the under. I'm going to take the under on it because I think once they figure out who the guy's going to be, I think we're going to see that guy start the majority of the season. But that is an intriguing aspect to this because I can certainly see Michigan rolling out Alex Orji, even if he doesn't start the game, just to sort of set the tone early and say, yeah, Davis Warren is coming, but don't forget, you're going to have to deal with this guy, and we're going to show you right out of the gate. So that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Where do you stand on that?
I also took the under, but like I said, when I was coming up with these over-unders, I was kind of thinking, what if Davis Warren is the actual starter? But we all know that if he is, Alex Orji is going to play a lot of football this season. Yeah, maybe they do trot him out there multiple games as the starting quarterback, even though he only snaps the ball one time and then leaves. But I'm with you. I'm going to go with the under. I feel like we're going to know what we need to know after this game. And if not, we'll definitely know what we need to know after Texas. And I definitely don't see more than one quarterback getting 4 starts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that seems like that is an interesting component, though. That's going to be something that we need to keep our eye on. Ricky from the Facebook page says he loves this. This is the one you're looking for.
I like to know where Lou Holtz is right now.
That's going to be there forever. I don't think I'm ever going to get rid of that. It's just such an incredible soundbite. All right, back to me, staying on the offensive side of the ball. Again, these are season over-unders if you're just tuning in. Trent, I'm going to ask you specifically now about one player, Donovan Edwards, 999.5 rushing yards on the season. For some context, during the 2022 year, which was his best season as a Michigan Wolverine, he finished the year with 991 yards. Now, again, splitting with Blake Corum, but you've also got a guy like Khalil Mullings in the mix, and you've got some depth there. So do I think Donovan Edwards is going to have more opportunities? Absolutely. But what do you think? Is Donovan Edwards going over 1,000 yards in 2024? 999.5. Are you over or under?
I'm going to go with the over. I think that he's matured a ton. I think we saw it in the spring game. He's a little more patient. And I mean, Donovan, we all know that he has that game-breaking ability. All it takes is 1 or 2 games where he rushes for 150, 200 yards. And then it's not like he has to keep doing it. Like, it all adds up. Michigan goes to the playoff, whatever. It all adds up. I definitely think that I think Edwards will be over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going over as well. And for all the reasons you said, I mean, he's put on 14 pounds of muscle during the offseason. He's grown physically. He's grown mentally. He is a team captain at this point. If you spend any time around him, during the offseason, you can just tell that there's a different vibe with this guy. I mean, he is ready to be the feature back. And I think I saw it in the comments. Meredith might have said it. Like, he is a big play waiting to happen. We just know that Donovan Edwards is capable of taking it to the house. And if you've got any doubts, just ask the folks down in Columbus. They saw it in 2022. I think this is a big season for number 7. Give me the over. I think Donovan Edwards is going to go over 1,000 yards rushing by a good amount. I mean, I see 1,200 yards being well within the realm of possibility. Hell, Joel Klatt likes him as a Heisman favorite. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And his reasoning behind that, I think, is fair. Blake Corum was a Heisman candidate when he got injured in 2022. Blake Corum was in the Heisman conversation. There's no reason to believe that Donovan Edwards is going to be less productive than what we saw out of Blake Corum during his time. So give me the over on that. Back to you, Trent.
Okay, so I asked you about Michigan's rushing yards. Now we're going to talk about their passing yards. For the whole season, will Michigan be over or under 2,999.5 yards? With that being said, last season, Michigan threw for 3,205 yards. Year before, they were just over 3,000.
And what was the over-under? What do you got it at?
2,999.5. So 3,000, basically.
I'm going to take the under. I got to take the under just because I do think the passing game is going to take a bit of a step back. Even though J.J. McCarthy didn't throw it a lot, I mean, his completion percentage was like, I think on his career, like 70%, damn near. I think that it's not necessarily going to spell bad things for the offense, but I do think it's going to be more of a play it safe type approach, more of what we saw with Cade McNamara, and more of an emphasis on the Michigan running game, and sort of like, we are going to play bully ball in the trenches, and we're fine trading field position, and we're fine leaning on our defense because we know you're not going to be able to put up points. Last year, Michigan finished number 1 in the nation, 10.4 points per game. So if you're Michigan and you can get that out of your defense this year, I mean, you got to find the end zone a couple times, kick a field goal here and there, and then that's a W all day long. So give me the under on that.
I'm also going to take the under pretty much for the exact same reasons you just said. I think Michigan's going to really dial into the rushing attack this season with Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings. Obviously, whoever starts this year probably isn't going to be J.J. McCarthy. I mean, you hope that they're going to be Cade McNamara or better, but I mean, even that's not something that we know for sure. So I think that passing game goes down slightly while the rushing game goes up.
I like it. Flip back now. I'm going to go to the defensive side of the ball. We've talked about these two guys about as much as anybody as we, during the offseason here. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, just two of the best defensive linemen in the country. I'm going to ask you combined sacks from Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, two guys who are being projected by some to both go in the first round. I've got the over-under for them combined at 7.5 sacks. I just got to watch my, sometimes things slip out. 7.5 sacks. And for reference, last year, Kenneth Grant finished with 3.5 sacks, Mason Graham at 3. So 6.5 sacks between the two. Do they get to the over on 7.5? Where do you stand? Geez, I'm seeing 12, 10 plus sacks.
Yeah, I think that's an easy over. I feel like you should have made that 9.5 or 10.5.
Okay.
I think that's an easy over. Kenneth Grant, he was a rotational piece last year for Michigan.
Yeah.
Behind Chris Jenkins and Mason Graham. Add him into a full-time role. We've seen the athleticism, his strength. Mason Graham, we all know about him. And going back to my earlier point about breaking down the pocket, penetrating to the quarterback, I think that they're going to combine for, I think, 10 easily.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it's going to be over. I'll take the over. I just think that because they are so well known, I think, an offensive line is going to scheme for that. And then you're going to have to deal with the edge of Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore and TJ Guy and some of the depth that they have there. I think that's where the majority of the sacks are going to come from. But I certainly think Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant are going to get to the quarterback. I'll take the over on 7.5, but I don't know that we're going to get to 12. I would love to see it. I think 12 combined would be great, but I think a majority of that's going to come from the edge rushers. Trent, I'll flip it back to you.
All right, so for my last one, we're going to go back to the defense. The most passing yards Michigan allows in a single game this year, I've got it set at 270.5. With that being said, last season they allowed 271 to Ohio State, which was the most in the season. But over the last 2 years, they've given up multiple games of 300 or more. So I'm 270.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the over because you got Oregon on the schedule. You've got Washington on the schedule, who's a bit of an unknown. Ohio State, they've got plenty of weapons. Like, I just think that there's going to be a game where somebody's going to be able to move the ball through the air against Michigan. I don't know where it's, is it Texas? Is it Oregon? Is it Ohio State? I do think it happens. You'd love to have Rod Moore back in the rotation. He's not there. Now Michigan is still, you got Will Johnson, you got Jair Hill, you got Zeke Berry and Makari Page. And I do think it's going to be difficult to throw the ball against this defense. And so I'm inclined to say under. But, even Michael Jordan has a bad game here and there. I think somebody somewhere is going to be able to move the ball through the air. So I'll take the over.
Yeah, as high as I am on the Michigan secondary, and I think that it's going to be very, very good. I also look at their schedule, and you have Texas, you have Quinn Ewers coming to Ann Arbor. You have to go play Will Rogers in Washington. You have Miller Moss and USC coming to town. You play Dylan Gabriel. You play Ohio State. I mean, there's a lot of high-flying offenses that you play this year. And even though I think Michigan's defense is going to be really good, their secondary is going to be elite. I mean, there's going to be one of these games where a team just airs it out constantly and just racks up yards. So I also go with the over.
Yeah, completely agree. Somebody in the comments makes a good point here that Texas is going to probably have to throw the ball more than they normally would. Their top two running backs are out. Are they both season-ending injuries? I know one of them is. I don't know if they both are.
Yeah, their lead back is, and also they lost like their third string back for the season.
Yeah. So, okay, Last one for me, over under on the season. Let me pull it up because I want to make sure that I've got the number right. I know that I had it. Okay. I've got Will Johnson. Will Johnson, his final year at Ann Arbor, at 5.5 interceptions. Last year, he snatched 4 of them. But I do think everybody knows who Will Johnson is, what he's all about. It's very easy for an offense to try to avoid Will Johnson. 4 last year, 5.5 this year. Are you taking the over or under?
I'm going to go under, but I think that speaks to Will Johnson himself. I don't think teams are going to want to test him. I mean, you have Jair Hill out there. You're going to have Zeke Berry. I think the teams will try to test the more inexperienced players and not even throw it Will Johnson's way. So while I think Will Johnson could intercept 7 balls this season, I don't think he's going to, just because I don't think the teams are going to test him.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy one. I think it's under, and for that reason alone. I mean, we know that he's capable of it, and they might try to move him around a little bit, but I think if you're an offense, you're going to look over at number 2 and you're going to say, we don't want to throw in that direction. And so you're going to try to figure out other things to do. It's going to limit his opportunities. And because of that, I'm going to take the under. I think he gets right at 5, but still a productive year for Will Johnson. No doubt about it. We are at, dude, we just blazed through 55 minutes. I can't even believe that we're here. Once again, football tomorrow, just a lot of mind-blowing things that are happening right now. We've got one more thing we need to do before we get out of here. We just did season predictions, but Trent, we've got a football game tomorrow. We've got to do some game things that we think are going to happen. And I want to switch this up a little bit because I wanted you to do 5 game predictions. Yeah. But let's take a buy or sell approach to this, right? You've got things that you think are going to happen. I've got things that I think are going to happen. And so what we're going to do, I'll tell you mine, you tell me yours, and it's buy or sell. Are you buying it and are you selling it? And depending on which way you go, you got to explain yourself. You kicked off the last segment, Trent. I'm going to kick us off here. Buy or sell. I've got Donovan Edwards with a 60-plus yard touchdown run Saturday night. Buy or sell it?
As much as I want to see that and buy it, I'm going to go ahead and sell it. That's a long run. And while obviously we've seen Donovan Edwards do it several times, I still think the odds are in his favor to do that on Saturday. So just that alone, I'll sell that idea.
Ooh, look at them coming in.
I know they are.
Buy it.
I mean, everybody wants to see it.
Buy it. Yeah, that's the thing. You got to weigh that. Of course, you want to see it, but do you think it's going to happen, Trent? I do think it's going to happen. I think, look, the Fresno State defense, they're going to have to deal with a Michigan offense that's high octane. And we've talked about, I said high octane as if it's not aerial, but they like to run the ball. They like to, pound in the trenches. And Donovan Edwards, that's where the high octane is. He is a big play waiting to happen. And if Fresno State makes a mistake on the defensive line or defensively in general, which I think they're going to do, it's going to open a big gap for Donovan Edwards to be sailing down the sideline all the way for 6. So I am buying Donovan Edwards 60-plus yard touchdown run on Saturday. We are 100% going to see it, much the same way remember what it was like when Washington came to town and Blake Corum sort of went trotting down the sideline in the maze out and threw up the deuces. It's harder to do that with the 7. You know what I mean? But that's what we're going to see out of Donovan Edwards Saturday night. Give me, I'm buying it, dude. All the chips on the table. We're going to see it.
All right. So switching to the passing game, do you buy or sell that both Alex Orji and Davis Warren throw touchdowns?
I'm going to sell that. I'm going to sell it because I only think we're going to see 1 touchdown through the air on Saturday night. I think the bulk of what's going to happen is going to come on the ground. And I think, look, even if it's Alex Orji in there and Michigan is in the red zone, I think they're going to run it with Alex Orji. You know what I mean? So I will sell it. I think we get 1 touchdown pass Saturday night, but I will sell on 2.
Call me naive, but I'm going to buy it. I think that especially the first game, we're going to see, unfortunately, a more of a 50-50 split at quarterback. We know what Davis Warren does. He's going to throw the football. What we haven't seen Alex Orji do is throw the football. And if he wants to be the starting quarterback at Michigan, he's got to show that he can throw the football. So I think that Kurt Campbell, Sherrone Moore, they're going to allow him to do that on tomorrow night. And I think he's going to throw for a score.
I love it. I mean, I would love to see it. I think it would be a good thing, but let's stick with the quarterbacks here. This might be the easiest buy or sell in the world, by the way, now that I'm looking at it. This is not like a bold prediction, but I do think we see an Orgy in the end zone on Saturday, so to speak. Are you buying or selling 1 touchdown rush from Alex Orgy on Saturday? Oh my God, I can't even believe you're thinking about this.
I'm going to buy it. Well, the reason why is I have him throwing a touchdown. Like, so do I think he's going to score 2 touchdowns? But I mean, yeah, it's definitely very plausible that he runs for a touchdown on Saturday. So yeah, go ahead and buy it.
Yeah, there is zero question in my mind whether or not we see Alex Orji run the ball in for 6 on Saturday. I just think, I said it before, I think Michigan's going to get a lot of opportunities in the red zone. And sure, they could roll them out and you could throw it, but your bread and butter, we saw what that was with Alex Orji last season. Give him the ball. There is no question as to what he's going to do. He's not going to hand it off. He's not going to throw it. Give him the ball and let him act as that wrecking ball, and you'll see him in the end zone. So yes, there will be an Orji in the end zone. I am buying 1 touchdown run for Alex Orji. Back to you.
Sticking with the offense. All right. So I have Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings rush for 70 or more yards each.
Ooh.
Well, we know that you think Donovan's going to get there.
I know. I'm trying to think of like what I think Khalil Mullings is going to do. And then, what are we going to see from Benjamin Hall? What are we going to see from some of the depth? How, what's the score going to look like? And I'm going to sell that. I think Donovan Edwards is going to get over. I could see Khalil Mullings being right around 50, 60 rushing yards. And I think that would be just fine. So I'm going to sell it. Wouldn't be surprised if it happened, but I will sell both guys getting over 70.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. I think Donovan Edwards will get there easily. I think he should be around 100. I also think Michigan wants to run the football. I mean, as much as I think that they want to show Davis Warren and Alex Orji throwing at some, we also know what their mantra is. They want to pound the rock. And Khalil Mullings is now that's number 2 back. I think he's going to get his healthy share of carries on Saturday. And I'm taking them both over 75.
Yeah, I like it. And Brandon from the Facebook page, he says, you guys should try to keep track of the predictions all year. We are 100% doing that. When we come back on Monday, we're going to revisit these predictions and figure out, we buy or sold. How did we do? Where do we rank? And we are going to track this throughout the season. So I think it's going to be extremely fun. Tyrone from the Facebook page says, nope, save the Don for next week. I totally agree. But, if 60 plus yards come on one run, which I think is going to happen, like you can be done after 5 rushes and get over 70. Switching back to me on buy or sell. Let me get my list back up in front of me here. Speaking of Khalil Mullings, let's just stick with the running game. I don't think he's going to go over 70 yards, but buy or sell Khalil Mullings 2 touchdown rushes on Saturday.
I'm going to sell that. I think he gets 1. I think Donovan gets 1. Like I've said, I think that Alex Orji throws for a touchdown. I think Davis Warren throws for a touchdown. I think that Michigan is going to spread it out a little bit. So I'll give him 1, but not 2.
I am buying it. I am buying 2 for Khalil Mullings. Once again, I think they're going to be in the red zone. I think Khalil Mullings is going to get some opportunities in the red zone, and I think he gets a couple scores in. So just as of note, I've got Donovan Edwards with a 60-plus yard touchdown run. I've got Alex Orji with a touchdown run, and I've got Khalil Mullings with 2 touchdown runs. I know I said it before we went into the segment. I think only 1 touchdown comes through the air, but I will buy Khalil Mullings getting 2 touchdowns on the ground. On the ground. Donovan Edwards will outrush him yardage wise, but Khalil Mullings will lead the team in touchdown runs on Saturday.
All right, Chris, let's move over to defense. Buy or sell, Michigan records 4 or more sacks Saturday.
I'll buy it. I'll definitely buy that. I think that this defense is going to be active. We know that Wink Martindale likes to be aggressive, and I think that Fresno State, for as talented as they may be, in their own right, I think that dealing with this Michigan defense, especially the defensive front and what they've got at linebacker, I think that's going to cause some problems. And so I will buy 4 sacks on Saturday, just easily. Won't even think twice.
Yeah,
Take my money.
I'm the same way. I'm going to easily buy that. Couple reasons why. I'm super high on Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart. We already know about Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. But Fresno State wants to pass the football. They've got to pass the football to stay in the game, which means it's more opportunities for Michigan to collapse the pocket and get to Mikey Keene. So give me 4 or more, definitely.
Yeah, but you got a lot of people selling. We've got TD from the Facebook page says he's going to sell. We got Tyler from the Facebook page says he sells. He's going to take 3. And then we got Alan from the Facebook page who thinks 6 sacks on Saturday. I mean, hey, it's not out of the question. It's certainly not out of the question. Let's stick with the defense trend. Buy or sell. The Michigan defense Saturday night forces 2 turnovers. Doesn't matter how they come, but the defense forces 2 turnovers Saturday night. Buy or sell?
So if I have something that's similar, do you want me to go ahead and bring it up?
Yeah, what is it?
So I have Michigan records 2 interceptions. So
Okay. Yeah.
So with you, obviously, I'm going to buy because I think once again, Fresno State wants to throw the football.
Yep.
Michigan secondary, they're going to be hungry to make some plays. You have Will Johnson out there. You have some younger guys out there that want to show what they can do. So yeah, I 2 or more, I'm buying that all day long.
For sure. Yes, same. And I think it is because Michigan's defense is going to be so disruptive. It could be 2 picks. You know, Zach from the Facebook page, we talked about this. I'm just not so sure how many opportunities Will Johnson is going to get to intercept the ball because I think they're going to avoid him at all costs. But I do think this defense is going to be disruptive. I think Fresno State is going to be playing from behind, and I think they're going to have to force the issue to try to keep themselves in this game. And when you force the issue, as the Michigan offense knows from fall camp, when you force the issue and things are happening quickly, it can lead to points the other way. It can lead to turnovers. And so I'm certainly going to buy 2 turnovers on Saturday night. Back to you, Trent. You got one more, right?
Yep, last one. The more I look at this one, it might be an easier buy than what you asked me. But so it only happened 4 times last year. But buy or sell that Michigan holds Fresno State to less than 80 rushing yards. Like I said, it only happened 4 times last year that a team held them under 80.
This is a tough team right here.
I'm buying that all day long. Once again, I just think life is going to be difficult for the Bulldogs Saturday night. And I think this defense is, for as many questions as we have about the offense, we don't really have that with the defense. And I just don't see them having any success running the ball. I think they are going to have to throw it and sling it around a lot. So because of that, I am going to sell 80 rushing yards.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, as much as people talk about Fresno State's passing attack, they have a really good running back. His name's Malik Sherrod. He rushed for, I think, 966 yards last season. So he's a good running back. But yeah, I think Michigan's going to get down to a lead. Fresno State's going to have to pass the football. Michigan has a sound run defense anyway, and I don't see them breaking that threshold.
Wait, was it buy or sell that they'll hold them to under 80?
Yes.
Okay, so buy. I had sell. Yeah, so I'm buying that for sure. All right, last one. Defensively, this might be the most bold prediction I have for the game itself, but look, this is how I see it playing out. Buy or sell, Trent. Michigan doesn't give up a single touchdown Saturday night.
I'm going to sell it. I think at some point in time, Michigan's probably going to throw some backups in there, and that's when I see Fresno State possibly making that late drive, putting up a touchdown.
I'm buying it. I'm buying it all day long. I think Fresno State gets into field goal range, you put 6 points on the board, but I just don't think they're going to be able to find the end zone. Once again, it's prime time. It's the big house. It's, this Michigan team with a chip on their shoulder. Everybody thinks, it's going to be a step back year for this program. These guys have been hitting each other now for months. I think that they're going to come out and really look to make a statement. And I think this defense is going to clamp down. And even though they're, depth is a bit of a question, I think from what I've heard coming out of camp and from some of these coaches, they like the rotational pieces they have. Even though they're not household names at this point, I think this Michigan defense is going to be just fine. So I am buying it. Fresno State does not find the end zone once on Saturday night, which brings us to the final portion of the show here as we are at 1 hour and 7 minutes. We are going to give our score prediction for Saturday night. Trent, I'm going to let you lead us off. Season opener, home opener, Michigan, Fresno State, big house, under the lights. How do you see it playing out? What's the score?
I've got Michigan winning 31-10. I looked at last season's non-conference schedule. Michigan, they averaged right around 31, 32 points a game for the three non-conference. That was with JJ McCarthy back there. You had Blake Corum back there. They also weren't playing a Fresno State team. I think people tend to forget, even though they're a smaller school, they've won 9 or more games the last 3 seasons. They return 80% of their production. They're a good, solid team. I think it's a good test for Michigan. Obviously, though, if you're going to strive to win the Big Ten, get into the college football playoff, you have to take care of business. Yep. I think Michigan's going to be too much for Fresno State. They're going to wear them down, and I've got them winning 31-10. 31-10 for Trent. I've got Michigan 41, Fresno State 6.
I think they get 5 touchdowns. They add a couple of field goals, 4 touchdowns on the ground, 1 touchdown through the air. Again, kick a couple of field goals. That's how you get to 41-6. I think you make a good point. Like, you are in a loaded conference now. This is about making statements, and voters are going to be looking at these things, and people who are making decisions. And you have to leave no doubt when you open the season in the big house against Fresno State, especially when the vast majority of the analysts out there are already counting you out and putting you in 4th place in the conference. Never mind the fact that you've won the last 3 Big Ten championships, been to the playoff the last 3 years, and won the national championship last year. I think Michigan is going to come out convincing win. Give me 41 Michigan, 6 Fresno State, and we'll find out tomorrow night, right? Trent and I mean, it's here.
Yeah.
We're going to hear this. Listen to it, Trent. It's just so beautiful. We'll be back Monday, right? We're not doing a post game. So let me get this out of the way first. We're not going to be doing any post game show. Trent and I will be back on Monday to discuss our thoughts, talk about what we saw, and that's going to be. I'm very much looking forward to that show because for as much as we speculate, we're finally going to have actual results to talk about. So that show, it's a pre-recorded show. We will be back on Monday. I will release it at 6 p.m. And once again, we are in the full schedule. Monday, 6 p.m. Wednesday, Fan-Led Wednesday. That's a live show. And then we'll be back on Friday to talk Texas and predictions and all of that stuff, dude.
It's here, man. It's here.
College football is here. And we get to go watch the B team. I think MSU is kicking off right about now. So go watch the Spartans battle FAU. It's probably going to come down to the wire. And have a cocktail. Enjoy your night. We'll see you in the big house tomorrow. Appreciate everybody who hung out.
Now I'm falling asleep, and she's calling a cab while he's having